What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the Total Takedown. It's your boy Clint from the Die Hard MMA podcast. This is Pub Sports Radio, and we're going back over UFC Vegas 76 from a totals perspective, overs and unders. Let's get on into it. Hit that like button for me. First fight of the night, we've got Blagoy Ivanov. Had trouble with that one. Blagoy Ivanov taking on Alexander Romanov. Total set at 1.5 here. We've got the over 1.5 juice to minus 190. The under 1.5 is plus 160. This one's a bit of a struggle because Blagoy has been crazy durable his entire career. He's got one loss by sub to Alexander Volkov, so obviously Romanov doing what Romanov does. If he comes out hard and early, he might be able to take Blagoy down, just kind of physically overpower and overwhelm this man. It's on the table. It's totally possible, but it's not an easy thing to do, and only one guy in this entire man's career has ever been able to pull that off. What we've seen from Blagoy is he forces you to fight his kind of slow-paced fight, and with how badly Alexander Romanov got beaten last time out, you got to think maybe he pumps the brakes just a little bit. He probably doesn't want to go through that again. I have a feeling this fight gets extended. Minus 190 is a bit of a chalky price tag, but I do think we get over 1.5. That's the way I'd be looking. Luana Carolina taking on Ivana Petrovic in the second fight of the evening. Total here is 2.5. The over 2.5 is minus 240. The under 2.5 is plus 210. Luana Carolina has been notably very tough through her UFC career. She did get knocked out by Molly McCann, but that was a meme spinning elbow, something that is not going to happen very often, doesn't happen a whole lot. She's got good solid takedown defense, but she struggles when she's on her back. Once she gets on her back, if somebody has a good top game, she tends to be in a bit of trouble, and that's exactly what Ivana does. Ivana's a strong grappler, good mix of different takedowns and abilities to get the fight to the floor. Once she's down there, good submission game, good ground and pound. I actually kind of like what I see from the offensive grappling from Ivana, but the thing I don't like about Ivana is the fact that she's only got 6 fights and the fact that she's been dropped in multiple of those 6 fights on the feet. She's got absolutely nothing for her opponents when it comes to standing situations. I actually think the under 2.5 might be a sneaky way to play this, because if Ivana does put Carolina on her back, Carolina is going to be in a world of hurt from that position. Ivana does have several KO victories on her record. And then if she is not able to get this fight to the ground, then you're going to see Luana Carolina probably just be able to tee off on the feet. And I'm not sure Ivana can take a 15-minute sustained beating from somebody who's got that kind of an edge on her physically on the feet. I'm going to go ahead and take a look at the under. Under 2.5 plus 210. I think it's far more likely that Luana's the one knocking out Ivana in this case, just because she's got that UFC durability. We've only really seen her finished early by Ariane Lipski via sub, and that was kind of another flukish, meme type of knee bar. I don't think Ivana's pulling something like that off. So I really kind of think it's heavily slated to Luana maybe catching her with a knee or an elbow in the clinch. But if that does happen, we'll get paid handsomely. Elvis Brenner taking on Guram Kutateladze, a 2.5 total here. We've got over 2.5 minus 115. Under 2.5 is minus 105. And geez, I really want to say under 2.5. The problem is, once again, we're dealing with a fighter that's completely made out of iron. Guram has faced a really high level of competition so far in the UFC. Pre-UFC, this guy was a knockout artist, but at this level, he seems to just be struggling a little bit at finishing and putting away these super high-level contenders. Elvis Brenner is not a super high-level contender, though, and that's kind of what I have big question marks about this. He seems extremely durable. He's got 3 losses. All 3 are by decision. I'm not sure this is going to be the guy that Guram comes out and smokes the way that we saw him do to people on the regional scene, but you never know. I will say over 2.5 at minus 115. Not a total I'm looking at playing personally, just because too many question marks, and really I only see the finish coming from the Guram side, not from the Elvis Brenner side anyway, so I'd rather take Guram inside the distance before playing the total personally if I was going to do that, but I'm not touching this one. Karol Rosa taking on Yana Kunitskaya, another 2.5 here. Over is minus 300, under is plus 250. And again, I am very tempted here on the under. We've seen Yana Kunitskaya get broken in the UFC multiple times, and even though she's on an 0-2 skid here against 2 of the best girls in the division in Holly Holm and Irina Aldana, it's the way she fought those fights that has me just big question marks. Holly Holm is decisionating everybody these days. She's not hurting or finishing really anybody. Irina Aldana, on the other hand, that round 1 beating is something that you're just not going to be able to come back from, in my opinion. She got TKO'd in the third round by Aspen Ladd. Cyborg took her out in the first round with a big-time bomb. And before she made it to the UFC, she was getting finished over in Invicta FC. So I actually think that we're seeing kind of the end of the career here for Yana Kunitskaya, Yana Santos. She does have 7 TKO wins of her own. I'm not necessarily sure that she can finish the fight. So again, it's another one of those where I really only see the finish coming from one side, but I guess Carol does have 2 sub-losses on her record. You could see potentially her losing in a scramble and giving up, a bad position and then getting tapped out or something like that. So there's some under equity here. I'd say under 2.5 at plus 250. I think we're going to see a bit of a surprising result here in this fight. Next up, Weston Wilson taking on Anderson Brito, a 1.5, juiced all the way to minus 270 to the under 1.5. This is going to be a 30-second barn burner. Brito fights like a wild man every single time he gets in there. And Weston Wilson, I don't think is UFC caliber, frankly, but he does seem to have a decent amount of offense at least. So yeah, I think this one's going under. I'm not laying $2.70 to find out if I'm right, but I would be looking under here. Rinat Fakhretdinov takes on Kevin Lee next. We got another 2.5. Over 2.5 minus 180, under 2.5 plus 150. And I also, in this case, lean to the under ever so slightly. I have a real hard time with this fight. Prime Kevin Lee might be able to finish Rinat Fakhretdinov, but Fakhretdinov has shown us nothing except that he's UFC caliber, he's solid, he's stable, he's durable. Little bit of a question with the gas tank, but is a smaller Kevin Lee the guy that's going to push him beyond that 15-minute and maybe TKO him in the third? That gets us real hairy and real close to this 2.5. Maybe it's possible. I'm more worried that Kevin Lee is maybe shot. His body hasn't recovered from surgeries the right way. We've seen him get pounded on, taken down, dragged to the floor by bigger, stronger bodies before. That's exactly what Rinat will do. And I got to wonder if Kevin maybe is at the point where he folds a little bit under that kind of pressure against a bigger opponent. Either way, I think both guys do have a chance at finishing. I'll say under 2.5 at plus 150. This is another complete stay away from me when it comes to the total because I don't know what the game plan is necessarily for Kevin. If he comes out trying to drag Rinat deep and then out cardio him, that's going to get you real close to that 2.5 round mark. But if he comes out guns a-blazing and looks for that head kick like he did against Gregor Gillespie, this under 2.5 could cash easily because he'll either burn himself out and then get killed, or he'll get that first round knockout and be looking great. I'm not sure what's going to happen. I don't know what's in his head. It's been a long time since we've seen him. He's coming off surgeries. Leave it alone. I'll say under, but I'm not going to touch it. Next up, you've got UFC newcomer Nursulton Ruziboev taking on Brunno Ferreira, a 1.5 total. The over 1.5 is plus 160, the under 1.5 minus 190. Another one that's really weird. Bruno's one of those guys where his fights are kind of low volume, low paced, and then he touches you and you're just dead. So like it could be over in 30 seconds, but he also could punch you out deep into the second round. So it's tough to really know where he's at. His opponent is a complete wild card. I'm not sure if his record is so padded he's a complete fraud. I'm not sure if it's actually semi-legitimate and actually maybe he's got some solid skills and some finishing upside. Really no clue what to make of this man. He's got some good jiu-jitsu, it looks like, very opportunistic with his submissions, but I don't know if he's going to be able to catch someone like Brunno in a situation like that. And really it's kind of weird because I feel like Nursulton's probably going to have to keep this fight at kicking range for him to have any type of a shot, which means the over might actually be in play because Bruno's another guy that I just don't know is going to get knocked out by a front kick or something like that. I have no clue. I'll say under 1.5. Don't bet this total. Next up, you got Benoît Saint-Denis taking on Ismael Bonfim. Another 1.5. The over is minus 190, under 1.5 plus 160, and I like this over. Again, it's a little chalky for me. Minus 190 is a little higher of a price than I would like to pay, but I will look over here. Benoît Saint-Denis has shown how incredibly durable he is. We all know the Elizeu Zaleski dos Santos fight where it should have been stopped 5 different occasions, but he dug deep and went through it, and the referee was ready to let him go out on his shield. You can't take that kind of toughness away from somebody. You can't teach that kind of toughness in a fight. Ismael Bonfim, he's got 3 submission losses. One of those is from Moicano. I mean, you got to be a high-level grappler to be able to catch this guy. And while Benoît Saint-Denis is a high-level grappler, he's not that slick in the jiu-jitsu. He's more of an arm triangle, bully, physicality type of grappler, heavy wrestling pressure, pound you into submission type of fighter. I'm not sure that's going to work on Ismael Bonfim. I actually think this fight goes over, and it doesn't have a half-bad shot of making it the full 15 minutes. So over 1.5, minus 190, it's a little chalky. I like it. Melissa Gatto takes on Ariane Lipski coming up next. We've got a 2.5 for this women's MMA fight. Over 2.5, minus 125. Under 2.5, plus 105. And again, I lean violence. And I do apologize, I misquoted that. It's minus 130 to the over and plus 110 to the under. And I still lean violence. Ariane Lipski is the queen of violence. She's chinny as all get out. We've seen her knocked out before. Melissa Gatto's got big power on the feet when she decides to go to it. And she's an incredible grappler with high-level submissions. We also don't know if she can stand for 15 minutes with someone the caliber of Ariane Lipski. I know Gatto has shown to be tough, but she's not fought anybody with the striking caliber of Ariane Lipski. And if she can't get this fight to the ground, I wonder how that's going to look for her. I think both women do have some finishing upside, heavily steeped on the Melissa Gatto side, but I do think either way, one of these women is going to find a finish. Under 2.5, plus 110. Michael Morales takes on Max Griffin, and this is the line I accidentally quoted you. 2.5, over 2.5, minus 125, under 2.5, plus 105. This one's tough. I actually kind of lean to the over 2.5. I think we're going to see some more wrestling in this fight than people are maybe anticipating. Michael Morales went to the third round in his last fight. Max Griffin is a much tougher, much more proven UFC caliber opponent than his last one. So I do think that this fight gets extended. And if one of these guys takes this to the ground, we're definitely going to find an opportunity for somebody to be exposed in the grappling area. And neither of these guys are really submission offense types of guys. So I think we're going to see control. I think we're going to see a very respectful striking match where they understand the power coming across the other side of the cage at them. And I'll say over 2.5, minus 125. Grant Dawson takes on Damir Ismagulov in your co-main event slot, another 2.5. The over 2.5, minus 210. The under 2.5 is plus 180. And on this spot, it's over all day. I don't like the number whatsoever, especially because Grant Dawson has kind of got a thing about finishing people in the third round these days. I would never play a 2.5 here with Grant Dawson. Either bite the bullet, get the better number, go fight, goes the distance, or play violence, because the way this guy finishes in the third round, that 2.5 round mark is just going to get you in trouble. I'll say over because of how tough Damir Ismagulov is, but this one could easily get ruined. Abusupiyan Magomedov takes on Sean Strickland in your main event, a 3.5 total, which is interesting. You know, what we've learned listening to our guy Johnny the Greek, 4.5s are basically an auto bet to the over, right? Well, 3.5s are where things get interesting. Minus 140 to the over 3.5. Under 3.5 is plus 120. I would be looking at violence on this spot. There's a lot of questions around Abus. This guy comes in, he has a big-time highlight reel knockout, and he jumps immediately into the contender circle. Now, that either speaks of they're capitalizing on this and overestimating what the kid has, or somebody somewhere in the back ends of the UFC, they know what this guy's capable of and he belongs in the top 5. We're going to find out on Saturday. I'm buying in on Abus. I think he's going to go ahead and be the guy, and because of that, I actually think he's got a chance to kind of do what happened to Sean Strickland when he fought Alex Ferreira. I think he's going to get knocked out, and if he does get knocked out, it comes early. The trick here is, I don't think Abus can keep up the pace that Sean Strickland puts on people for 25 minutes, and we've seen this time and time again. If you're not ready for this dance, Sean Strickland will expose you, and I expect that to be the case. If Abus goes hard in that first round and doesn't quite get the finish, Sean doesn't finish a whole lot of people, but I could see Abus crumbling under the pressure of Sean Strickland if this fight gets extended. So I'll say under 3.5 at plus 120. Violence is the pick. That's the total takedown, everybody. Thank you all so much for joining me. See you tomorrow for the undefeated post-weigh-in show. Good luck on all your degenerate action. Let's roll.